This morning's scripture is taken from Mark chapter 16. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Most of us have been there. A death has occurred. There is nothing to do. We don't go to work. We don't go visiting. We sit. There is much to do. There are legal matters to attend to. There is a funeral to arrange. There are people to be called. There is a decision to be made about a place of burial or about how the body will be handled. We've been there. The kinder among us have made many of these arrangements ahead of time so that we have fewer decisions to make. For others, there are lots of decisions to make. This has happened. And things may be different, look different. When my mother died, we had come to Pensacola for Thanksgiving weekend. We had brought casual clothes. I needed to go buy a suit that would be ready. Buy a suit on a Saturday that would be ready by Monday for me to wear. Luke came along with me. He was, I guess, 7 at that point. And he didn't really want me to buy. I told him we had to go buy a suit. He didn't want me to buy a suit for Mimi's funeral. He kind of interfered with it all. That was his way of processing his grief. The next day we were at the funeral home, and it was great. It had a TV, a kitchen, and a Coke machine, everything you could want, and more. It was exciting to him. There were new people to meet, old acquaintances to be renewed. This has happened. There are things to do. The women had stayed with him the whole time. Mark tells us that all the disciples ran away. One was so afraid and so determined to get away that he had left his clothes behind. So determined he was to get away. But the women stayed. The women stayed by the cross. The women noticed where the burial was to take place. And there were things to do that hadn't been done before the burial. The women were the carriers of that responsibility. And so they show up. Showing up at the grave after everything has settled down. And they're determined to do it, but they wonder about the stone. What's to be done about the stone? They have something to do, but they don't know how they're going to get in to do it. And they've been to graves before. They know that when people die, they stay dead. That's our consistent, always known reality. They're concerned about a stone, but they're not concerned about a resurrection. Now, Jesus had talked about it. He talked about it several times. Every time he talked about it, he talked about a resurrection. And they heard it. But when somebody's talking about something you've never seen, when somebody's talking about something you've never experienced, they're not processing it. It's not just something you personally haven't done or you personally haven't seen. It's something nobody has seen. And they show up. And the stone they were worried about is no longer there. And they walk in. And there's somebody there. But it's not a dead body. And it's not Jesus. That strange proclamation is made. He's not here. He's risen. Just like he told you. Go tell. Well, they're not sure. They are afraid. If something happens that you're not expecting. If something happens that doesn't fit into your experience. For me, at least, the first thing I experience is fear. The worst days of my work that I recall were orientation days. The days when I came into a new organization and I'm told all about their policies and their procedures and this and that, and they're all new. They're all new to me, and they're focused on what bad things can happen if you don't follow these. And my experience is fear. Beginning anything new. Is this going to be okay? Are they going to like me? Is it going to work out? Do I have what I need to do this job? It's fear. Who are these people? They experience fear, which is normal. It's to be expected. They don't know what Jesus was talking about with this resurrection stuff. And over the first years of the first centuries or so of Christian experience, different accounts of everything got written down. We think, most scholars think, that Mark was the first of these to be written down. Written down to be read in a worship service. The whole thing would have been read. You may have heard or seen a presentation of the Gospel of Mark. It can be done in one sitting. And most of these scholars who agree that Mark was the first also agree that the story we have ends at verse 8. It ends with the women running away. They have been given a task to go tell the disciples and Peter to meet him in Galilee. But then they run away because they're afraid. People weren't satisfied with that. They wondered. And they wondered, did part of the manuscript get lost? The oldest manuscripts we have, the ones that are most reliable, end at verse 8. Did Mark have a longer ending? Did he have more to say? Maybe. And some of the newer manuscripts have some more to say. If we were snake handlers, we'd look to 9 through 20 for our justification. If I'd told you we were having snake handling today, you might not have come. If I'd told you we were having snake handling today, I wouldn't have come. It ends. So if we can take it, that's really where Mark intended to end it. They ran away, for they were afraid. That's us not knowing what to do with this reality. Hearing the message and hearing it. Now, surely, at some point, they did go ahead and tell the disciples. At some point, the disciples must have met Jesus in Galilee, just as he said, because it was found worthy of telling and writing down. But the first reaction, the one where maybe we are, is everything is different. Things have changed. We don't know what it's going to look like from here on. We're afraid. But we've heard the message. He's not here. He's risen. And he goes before us. Closing hymn is